Hey everybody, today we're going to look at string templates in ES6. So when ES6 came out in 2015, we were introduced to new ways of working with strings and variables called string templates. So first, let's take a look at some of the ways that we work with strings and how string templates improve this experience. So first, we'll look at escaping characters. So before ES6, there's basically two ways of defining strings. One is with single quotes. So if we type a string like that, you'll notice that when we use single quotes and our string has a single quote in it, JavaScript thinks that this is the end of the string. So what we need to do is use a backslash to escape that string. And then JavaScript is able to tell that this is the entire string. And if I log this out to the console, we can see backslash is removed and we just have our single quote. Another way to avoid having to escape the single quote is to actually define our string using double quotes. So if we do that, then we don't need to escape the single quote. JavaScript sees the opening double quote and it looks for the ending double quote. And that defines our string. And if we log that out to the console, you can see it's the exact same thing. And likewise, if we try to use a string that contains a double quote, we're going to run into the same kind of problem. So you can see with this string, because we started with double quotes, we have to escape these double quotes. And now our string is valid. And if we log this one out, you can see that it comes out as our valid HTML with the double quotes with no slash in front of them. And just like we did with the single quote, we can define this string with single quotes, and then we won't need to escape these double quote characters. And there we go. When we log it out, it's the same string. Double quotes are preserved here. Now with string templates, this solves the problem where we don't have to escape a single or double quote. Now with string templates, we define the string using the backtick character. Now this is the character that is to the left of the one key on your keyboard, usually in the top left corner. It also has the tilde on the same key. So we define it with the backtick, and when we have to use double quotes or single quotes, we don't have to escape either of them. Oops. There we go. So just by using the backtick, we can include single and double quotes and not have to escape them. And if I log this out to the console, you can see both our double quotes and single quote are preserved. Really, the only character you would need to escape when using string templates is the backtick character. But chances are you've probably very rarely, if ever, had to type this into your text. Typically, you're going to run into single and double quotes, and with string templates, you don't have to escape them any longer. So the next thing we're going to look at is how to handle line breaks or new line characters. So if I define a message here, and I'm just going to have it say first line, second line, and third line, Oops. There we go, third line. And let's say I wanted each of these to be on its own line when it comes out. I can't just hit the new line because when you use single or double quotes, JavaScript is expecting the string to end on the next line. So the way to insert a new line is to use the new line escape character, and that's /n. So I can put a new line here and put a new line here. And if I log this out to the console, you'll see that it comes out first line and the new line character, second line, start a new line, and third line, just like we wanted it. The downside to this is it's not the easiest thing to read, especially if your editor doesn't have good color coding. It all kind of blend together, and you'll have to visually read it and try to decipher, okay, here's the first line, here's the second line, here's the third line. So that's kind of not a great way to work with new lines. So with ES6 and string template with the backtick, you could still use the new line character and you'd come out with the same output. But one of the nice things you can do is you can just put a new line and you'll notice that it's all still valid JavaScript. So when you use the backtick, JavaScript won't expect that the closing backtick is necessarily on the same line. So you can put in your own new line and it's fine with that as long as there is a closing backtick at some point. And if we log this out, you can see the result is the same. First line, second line, third line. So this is great, and it's much easier to read than the previous double quote example because you can visually see each line that's going to get printed out. The only downside to this is you'll notice that my second and third line are right against the indent here. I mean, they're not indented at all. And so if I wanted to indent them just to make the code clearer that this is all part of the same statement, like you would normally indent your code, if I put in this case, it's indented with 4 spaces. If I put those in and run it, you'll see that the output is also indented because it's literally taking all these spaces and outputting those as well. So in some cases, that might not be a bad thing. It really depends on what the application is that you need this in. So it's just something to keep in mind when you're working with multi-line string templates, that any indent is going to come out in the string. So just something to be aware of. Next, let's take a look at using variables within your string. So let me define a variable here, a name variable. And now I'm going to define a greeting string, which is going to contain that name variable. So let's say I just want it to say hi, then the name gets inserted, followed by an exclamation point. Now you can see with using single or double quote strings, I have to concatenate the pieces of the strings with the variable in order to get my final string, the greeting string, which will contain all of this. So visually, it takes a bit more work to look at it and try to figure out what the end result will be, because you have to kind of piece these together as you're looking at it. And if I put this out to the log, you can see that it comes out as expected. So it says, hi, Mario, with the exclamation point at the end. So it works, but it's not super clear. So one of the things that I got in the habit of doing before string templates came along was sort of rolling my own string templates. So if I started off with something like this, where I kind of made up a placeholder and I have my whole string here, what I can then do is use JavaScript's string replace method to look for a particular string. In this case, I'm looking for this, the curly brace name token, essentially, and replacing that with the name variable I defined up here. So when I do this, I can run it, and you can see the result is exactly the same. And the reason why is because I'm replacing this part of my string with the variable. So this kind of has a benefit of separating the string, like how it should appear, from the logic of replacing the variables back here. So this is better in a way that you can read what the whole string will look like. But still, it has a kind of a lot of boilerplate back here. And this is just one variable. Imagine if you had to do it for several variables or some more complicated scenario. So with string templates, if I take this out and start defining my string using these backticks, string templates let you include variables within your string by using $ curly brace, then the variable name, and then close curly brace. And that's it. So now you can see it's very similar to the kind of DIY template I showed you before, where the variable is just wrapped in this $ curly brace, but you still get kind of the nice, clean, readable string here. And if I run this, again, the same result down here. So the string template sees this variable inside the $ curly brace and replaces it, and then you end up with your string. So one of the other nice things about string templates with these variable placeholders is it doesn't have to be just a variable. You can put really any JavaScript expression in here. So let's say we didn't have a greeting. Let's say we had something like 100 plus 50 equals, and then inside here, we have the JavaScript expression 100 plus 50. So what will happen here is JavaScript will create this string by evaluating this JavaScript, getting the result, and then plugging that into our string template. And we can see when we run this, 100 plus 50 equals 150. So the result of this expression is that 150 down here. And we could even do something a bit more complicated. Instead of a simple expression like that, we could call functions from within here. So we'll call the round function in the math library and let that run. And you can see it says your score equals 94. So it took the result from this function call and put that into our string. So it just kind of shows you the power of these string templates and really the flexibility it gives you while still being much more readable than trying to concatenate strings together. So at this point, you might be wondering, is there any reason not to use string templates? Is there any reason to still use singular double quotes? And really, there isn't any real advantage to using singular double quotes anymore. I think for a lot of people, it's just easier to type. Maybe they're used to it. Maybe it's physically easier to type on the keyboard. And some people find that the single or double quotes are easier to read. In my opinion, it's really a matter of preference. For me, I'm used to typing single quotes, so typically I'll end up typing something in single quotes, and really only if it reaches a point where I need to add variables to my string, then I would switch over to actually using backticks. But really, it's a matter of preference. So let me know in the comments below which method you prefer, whether it's single or double quotes or the string templates, and why you might use one over the other. Thanks for watching. If you found this lesson useful, remember to press that thumbs up button down below, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. Thanks again, and see you in the next lesson.